time once again for Community Forum, and we're very lucky to have back with us live in the studios this morning, Mary Hanson. Mary Hanson is on the steering committee. She is the co-chair of the steering committee of the Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action, and to talk with us about our local role in nuclear weapons and nuclear nonproliferation today on the 71st anniversary of the U.S. nuclear bombing of Hiroshima. Mary, thank you very much for coming in and spending time with us this morning.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate your attention to this really important reality that we're faced with. As maybe people have been seeing, here in Seattle, we are 20 miles west of in Seattle, we are 20 miles west of the largest concentration of deployed nuclear weapons in the United States. That's over at Naval Base Kitsap, Bangor, where the Trident submarines are based and where a lot of other nuclear weapons are stored. The submarine-based nuclear weapons of the United States, half of them, actually over half of them, are 20 miles from us. And so it's kind of a strange reality that in the backyard of a little town called Poulsbo, Washington, with a population around 8,000, there's this enormous nuclear reality. So even though Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action is a group made up of people from all over the state of Washington, basically Western Washington, with some from Central Washington, we're seen as, a group that's based in Poulsbo. Well, that's where we have our center, right next to the base, right next to the Trident base, sharing. We have about 4 acres over there and a really good space for doing the educational aspect of our work. And it's still overwhelming that, a relatively small group with an address in a really remote part of our state over in Kitsap County has been working since the 70s to draw attention to the reality of these nuclear weapons and to the need to get rid of them, to abolish nuclear weapons.
And working since the 70s because that's when the base was basically built?
Yeah. And the base was built before they understood what the seismic problems were in our state. The base is fairly close to the Seattle fault. And our region is, of course, close to and part of the Cascadian subduction zone. So none of that was known when they made a decision to take this tiny existing military outpost called Bangor and expand it and make it into the base that it is today, where if you took, just for getting a few of these facts in here, if you took one submarine of the 8 deployed at Bangor, one of those subs has a firepower equal to more than 1,400 Hiroshima-sized nuclear bombs. That's pretty incredible. The nuclear warheads that are stored there and that are on the submarines based at Bangor have the combined explosive power equivalent to more than 14,000 Hiroshima bombs. It's an overwhelming but somber fact that if those weapons are ever used, it's over. The Earth does not have the ability to, at least for humans, to recover from that. So that's where the fact that we still exist comes in. As long as those weapons are there, there's a need to organize to get rid of them. And we don't intend to stay small. We intend to grow. We intend to attract an audience of and also involvement of many, many more people in order to accomplish that goal.
Which is, you're having multiple events that are happening this weekend over there at your home over in Paulsbo, near Paulsbo, and by attract more people. Once upon a time, there were incredible protests there at the base, near the base, when the white trains were coming through. There were protests out in the water, flotillas with numerous watercraft being arrested, fire hosed by the Coast Guard. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that's a little bit before the time I got here and got involved in the peace movement a little later than that, but that is what happened over there. And it relates especially to what's going to happen this week on the 9th, which is the anniversary of the bombing, 71st anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki. There will be something called Boats by Bangor, and that is going to be a water-based nonviolent protest and witness for peace in Hood Canal at the Trident nuclear submarine base, where peace activists will travel along the Bangor waterfront where the nuclear warheads and Trident missiles are loaded onto the submarines, and where submarines are resupplied for ballistic missile patrols in the Pacific Ocean. So this is the first time we've done this. You can't actually see much from the road when you go over to the Bangor base. I mean, just trees and cement and little buildings and stuff. So from the water side, you can see somewhat more of the base itself. And there's no intention to risk arrest. The sailboats and kayaks will travel along the entire length of the waterfront of the naval base, including the Delta Pier and the 2 explosives handling wharves where the Trident submarines are maintained and the nuclear warheads and Trident D5 missiles are loaded on the submarines. There will be no vessels in that peace flotilla that will be risking arrest. They will be staying within the boundaries that they're supposed to. But anyway, the peace flotilla will include the original peace ship, the Golden Rule, that set sail in 1958 to the South Pacific to stop nuclear bomb testing in the atmosphere. And thank you for interviewing the crew of the Golden Rule a few weeks back. And that's a national project of Veterans for Peace. The flotilla will also include members of the annual Pacific Northwest Interfaith Peace Walk that's led by the Bainbridge Island Nipponzan-Myoji Buddhist Temple. This is the first year for a large water-based presence since the first Trident submarine, the USS Ohio, arrived, as you were saying before, at Bangor in 1982. This flotilla is part of a continuing effort by activists to lift the veil of secrecy involving nuclear weapons in Puget Sound. This hidden quality, I mean, in order to get to Ground Zero House or the Ground Zero Center or to get to the Trident base, you have to really know the directions. This is not something you're going to casually just kind of find, and that's on purpose. Having it be in a rural area, it was farms when it was established there, was all on purpose, so that it takes an effort to get there. Once you've done it once or twice, I think then people become comfortable with going to our center or coming to demonstrations there. But that first getting through the invisible shields, I guess, of unfamiliarity can be a barrier for some people. But once you're there, I think people really find it meaningful to stand up to this ultimate danger to our country and to our world.
And the grounds there at the Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action, it's, as you said before, it's 4 acres. It's actually really nice. It's like going to a, a local park. And I believe GZ offers, places that you can pitch your tent if you're hanging out over the weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah. And on the 8th, actually, the way events are going to move is that on Sunday and Monday, we'll be having events over there. And to find out more about the exact schedule, you can go to our website. That's gzcenter.org, or you can contact info@gzcenter.org. Essentially, Sunday will be more educational, and then on Monday, as we always do, we will go down to the land side and have a vigil there, and that there will probably be civil disobedience at that time, early Monday morning. So if people contact us and would like to come out, and come out on Sunday, stay overnight, or else check out the website and come very early Monday to take part in that. And then the Boats by Bangor is on Tuesday. So there's quite a lot going on. And usually the best part of it in a lot of ways is just being around other people who are also willing to take this on and to talk about it, to talk about what can we do about it. There's opportunities to talk with and share information and just create a sense of the beloved community that King talked about, that Martin Luther King talked about, that is necessary to have the social support of other people to do this kind of work.
And because, as is true with so many issues today that we all care about, any individual issue can just seem overwhelming to us as an individual person. But when you can get together with other people and talk about it, there is a sense of empowerment and
Yes.
a sense that you are not alone in the wilderness, so to speak. You started out and said that as people can see about the Ground Zero facility over there, and I think you were probably pointing to the recent bus ads that the GZ Center had done and the increase in local media attention from that.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. We put a bus ad out a few weeks ago that shows a map of Seattle and the Bangor base, which is just north of Bremerton, really, north of Silverdale on the Kitsap Peninsula. And it says on that bus ad, 20 miles west of Seattle is the largest concentration of deployed nuclear weapons in the U.S. And that bus ad now has helped to generate conversations with the public to bring this issue to Seattle, bring it out of that secrecy, because that's one of the biggest barriers that we face. The fact that the base is so hidden from Seattle is the reason why we decided to do these bus ads. And we really appreciate that the columnist in the Seattle Times, Jerry Large, did a really wonderful column on that on August 1st. And basically laid out that reality, that it is hidden, and there has to be a way to bring it into people's consciousness, people's awareness. The Cold War, not only is the Cold War not over, it's worse right now. And I've spoken here on that last fall, but basically the situation that we have in the world between especially the United States and Russia is much worse than it was back in the 80s when I first came to Seattle and when we had the first demonstrations against the Ohio. Back at that time, there was something called détente. There are people now who don't even remember that, but that meant there was an active effort for the U.S. and the Russians to really cooperate. And I would refer also in the Seattle Times just yesterday to a wonderful letter to the editor in Northwest Voices on the Ukraine conflict by a man named Ron Young of Everett. And he's basically saying that the old Cold War patterns complicated the crisis in the Ukraine from the start. I'm quoting him, Russia accused the U.S. of a larger role in the Ukrainian popular revolt than was real, and the U.S. uncritically welcomed the revolt as providing opportunity to draw Ukraine away from Russia, closer to the EU and NATO. Russian military support for Russian-leading rebels in eastern Ukraine and U.S. military support for the Western-oriented government in Kiev increased the dangers of U.S.-Russia confrontation. And as Young continues, what's needed is tough, coordinated diplomacy by the U.S. and Russia to support strict adherence by both sides to the ceasefire and insistence on full implementation of all provisions of an existing peace agreement, including constitutional reform in Ukraine, independent local elections, more autonomy for the eastern, more Russian-oriented region, and return of the region to Ukrainian sovereignty. Ukraine should announce formally and publicly that it will not join NATO. Ukraine should be encouraged to establish economic relations with both the European Economic Community and the Russian-backed Eurasian Economic Union. That is the flashpoint. The area around Ukraine is a place where the intentions of the United States toward Russia are way worse than they were in the 80s, much more aggressive, and where the Russian fear of and aggression back toward the U.S. Is also significant. And what we're facing now is, on the U.S. side, a $1 trillion arms buildup, rebuilding the entire nuclear arsenal of the United States over the next 30 years, spending $1 trillion to replace the submarines and the bombers and the land-based missiles. It's crazy. It's really a bad situation, and the public has been kind of asleep about this, but I think is waking up. If the response to our best ad is any indication, and just the attention that I think nuclear issues are getting is an indication, their possibility for a much more active anti-nuclear movement seems like a reality to me right now.
Because overall, we're looking at 15,000 nuclear weapons worldwide, many of which, the majority of which are still on hair trigger alert. Right. Which includes all the ones we've got here, as well as the Bangor facility continues outside of the 1 trillion projected over 30 years, which I'm sure will grow, is getting upgrades, is just completing the explosive handling wharf, I believe, is going to be completed this year. That's the second loading wharf at the Trident base over 20 miles from Seattle, so they can load twice as many subs. And I don't know if you can touch on the some of the issues just from that facility alone.
Sure. Yeah. Ground Zero and WPSR, Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, are involved in an environmental lawsuit against the Navy's second explosive handling wharf at Bangor. As a result of the lawsuit, plaintiffs discovered that while the Navy insisted that the second wharf posed no new safety risk at the base, the federal agency responsible for explosives siting refused to grant approval. If you look at these wharves, an explosion on one wharf will cause the other, whatever is being built or worked on the other wharf, to also explode because they were sited way too close together. This case was filed in federal court in June 2012 and is currently pending in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I attended that hearing, and it was wonderful. I felt that the judges really showed a lot of respect toward the issues. I thought they took them very seriously. So I'm hopeful that Ground Zero may, in fact, win that case. That's my hope. We are concerned. This concentration of nuclear weapons creates a target, frankly. It's horrible. And we are concerned that an accident at the base would create not a nuclear explosion per se, but like a dirty bomb, a dispersion of lethal combination of missile motor fuel and nuclear material that would contaminate a vast area. So we've been coming at a number of issues there. Safety, our environmental safety, as well as our nuclear policy.
And there's been multiple near misses in the past, accidents, both there at the base, accidents with the when the white trains were in use, derailment there that both of which went under the radar, and local officials were outraged when they finally found out.
Right. It's the most recent one was that when they were doing maintenance on a missile, a crew went for lunch and left a ladder inside a missile, and when somebody took a crane to lift it, move it, the ladder pierced the skin of the one of the stages. Could have been a disaster, came within inches of being a very serious accident, and it was covered up. So there's a risk to having these things. There's a risk to having nuclear weapons. There's another huge area, and that's the risk, and that's why I was mentioning Ukraine, the risk that a military exercise of some kind, either in Syria or in the Ukraine, could lead to an accidental nuclear war, meaning that it would appear to one side that that the other side was attacking them when they weren't. But failures of things like radar have happened in the past, and we've had a whole lot of close calls. Very brave individuals have decided not to fire nuclear weapons and they have ridden out situations that were apparent nuclear attacks that turned out not to be. So as long as we have nuclear weapons, we live with that risk of accidental nuclear war. Very serious problem.
So if it wasn't clear before, with being the largest repository of nuclear weapons in the Western Hemisphere, that really, Ground Zero, that really makes us the largest target for incoming nuclear, of the 15,000 that are out there, which I think 5,000 are the U.S.'s, of the other 10,000, we're the number one potential target for those. Is that correct?
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they would all, but yeah, we would be a target. I mean, if there is a nuclear war, this area would be horribly burned. And I want to, in the bit of time I have left, mention that on May 27th of 2016, President Obama spoke in Hiroshima and called for an end to nuclear weapons. He said that the nuclear powers, as I quote, must have the courage to escape the logic of fear and pursue a world without them. Obama added, we must change our mindset about war itself. And this is so true. Einstein said the same thing, that the discovery or the invention of nuclear weapons changed everything except the way we think. And we have to change the way we think. We have to work to not just eliminate nuclear weapons, but to eliminate war. War isn't working at all. And because of climate change, we don't have all the time in the world to get rid of war, and we don't have all the time in the world to get rid of nuclear weapons. And recommitting to having them over the next 30 years is totally, totally unacceptable. All those resources need to be redirected to social and infrastructure needs, and also to making the transition to a different energy system that doesn't cause global warming. We do not have 30 years to keep playing this really stupid game that is such a threat to survival.
So just a couple minutes left. So talking with Mary Hanson, she is on the steering committee of the Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action, an organization physically located adjacent to the Bangor Trident subbase over in near Paulsbo. And again, what's happening this weekend that people can check into?
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to mention is that the Golden Rule, the boat that we mentioned before that will be part of our flotilla, you can visit them if you call 206-992-6364. You can get a tour of the boat. It'll probably be at Bell Harbor Marina, Pier 66. Good idea to call first. But you can see this historic boat that back in the 50s demonstrated against the testing, nuclear weapons testing, and played an important role in ending atmospheric nuclear weapons testing. And then we hope to see many of you at Hiroshima to Hope tonight. That's the lantern floating just close to the parking lot of the Bathhouse Theater, across that hill that's between the lake, between Green Lake and the parking lot of the Bathhouse. It's wonderful. We'll be floating lanterns commemorating the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the only time nuclear weapons were used. And it's one of the most heartfelt demonstrations of peace that I've seen anywhere. We're so lucky to have it here in Seattle every year, and we've been doing that since 1984. So come on by. It's at from 6 to 9 p.m. this evening.
All right. And then Ground Zero for the whole weekend has got events going.
And for a list of the times, go to our website, www.gzcenter.org. You can find out, and we'd love to see you there.
All right. Well, with that, we are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming and spending time with us again this morning.
Thank you, Mike.